It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be fucking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be fucking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Yeah!
There's a silent, sacred contract between storytellers and audiences. One that goes back to the dawn of myth itself. Every lead character is a chosen one. Let me repeat that. Every lead character is the chosen one. Not always by prophecy, not always with superpowers, but always, in some essential way, the only one who could lead this story at this moment, in this way. They are the centerpiece of a look at a world. It is defined by them, and everything else is a polarization or opposite of them and how they behave. Even if they're flawed, ordinary, or reluctant, we follow them because something in our bones whispers, this is the one, the exact right soul for this journey, for this story. That's what makes myth work. That's what makes narrative matter. In books, the character is crafted from scratch, built to carry the story's weight. But in film and TV, they go out into the real world and find a human being to become the myth. Not just an actor, a vessel, a chosen one for the screen, for the part. And when a story hits, when it lands with generations, it's not just because it was fun or flashy. It's because the audience believed. They saw the actor, the role, the essence of the character, and they said, yes, that's them. That's the one. But here's where it's gone wrong. There's a false idea floating around today that the chosen one is some kind of outdated white savior archetype. But that's a shallow reading of a deep myth. The truth is, every chosen one is meant to be different, unique, sacred, not interchangeable. You don't need a black Superman. We already have Luke Cage. He's his own chosen one, his own myth, and he deserves better, bigger, brighter stories written with faith in his singularity. The Justice League worked because each character was a different answer to the same question. How do we save the world? Same with the Avengers. Same with any good team dynamic. Look at any good roster of X-Men. Are they all the same character? Or are they a perfect collection of both the perfect characters for the stories that are being told and the perfect characters to act as foils, act as polarities to each other, dynamics to each other, back and forth to each other? You're not supposed to just be inventing conflict when you write. You're supposed to be allowing natural conflict to come out organically from all of the perfect chosen ones that you have put into place in your story, because they were the perfect choices. Or at least we hope as an audience that they were the perfect choices, that you tried to view it like that you tried to create something like that, where these characters were important. They were the most important, perfect version of the thing to tell the story. I'm going to always assume, the audience is always going to assume that you chose the best, most interesting, most dynamic, compelling character to tell your story with. That is an assumption the audience is always making, no matter what you do. But when all of the members of the Avengers start acting like Iron Man, and Thor and Captain America are just as quippy and self-aware, and right? Doesn't that ruin it? Hasn't that ruined the Marvel Universe, as everybody is Tony Stark? Or in the DC Warner Brothers universe, for years now, Warner Brothers has had this idea that the only piece of IP that they have that's really worth anything is Batman. And that all the other superheroes just aren't as good as Batman, because everybody says Batman's my favorite because Batman's this cool and he's dark and he's an anti-hero in a way that these other guys aren't. But when they all start sounding like Batman, when grit replaces grace, when cool replaces contrast, they stop complementing each other and start blurring into one meaningless thing. You can't remix uniqueness. You can't franchise the divine. And when everyone is treated like the chosen one, no one feels like one anymore. And that's how the myths die. I'm Jesse Blaze Snider, and you're listening to the Coolest Geek Alive. How you doing? I'm super excited to chat about today's topic, the topic of shared culture and the current death of it. Right now, all my shared culture is being slaughtered in front of my eyes. And I'm searching myself to figure out how we pick up all these pieces of our shared culture and put them back together. Because shared culture is so important. It's so important. I am not your typical nerd geek. I did not choose geekdom and nerd culture because I couldn't have been one of the popular kids. I'm charming. I can talk. I've had girlfriends throughout my life. I'm not trying to impress you, and please, I'm not trying to compliment myself here. But I chose this thing that other people chose out of desperation because I thought they were right to choose this. I hate that they feel like they were forced to choose this. This is the right answer. This realm of myth, of D&D and Star Trek and Star Wars and Marvel and DC, all of these super heroic goods. To me, it was like the Bible. It was like stories of Jesus Christ. Stories of these people turning to the other cheek, doing the right thing, no matter what. Well, I don't know about you, but when you get into conversations about Jesus Christ and religion, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of different interpretations, and people get pretty dogmatic pretty quickly. But not so in the realm of superheroes. People would talk about disagreements, silly disagreements amongst geeks about the Juggernaut and the Blob and Superman and who could beat who. And these disagreements never really came to blows. These disagreements lasted ages. Two friends poking at each other. I like Snake Eyes. You like Storm Shadow. Storm Shadow sucks. Nuh-uh, Snake Eyes sucks. But we remained friends. The polarization of the way we viewed the myth defined us and who we are. It didn't turn us into demons that needed to be vanquished. It didn't make us evil or bad or blasphemous. We still were sharing in the same experience. We were still sharing in the same myths. We were just experiencing it and interpreting it a little bit different. And while disagreements arise, they never arise in the awful, terrible way that they do when we talk about religion. And that is why the myth of geek culture and nerd culture is that much more powerful than any of the myths based in reality on planet Earth. Because we don't really have to fight over them. We can look at them all equally and evaluate them as we do. But our evaluation will not turn us evil in the eyes of the other people sharing in the myth. And most of the time, we're generally going to have a lot of similarities in the way we're viewing the myths. And those uniting similarities are infinitely more prevalent than the disagreements and polarities in interpretation that we might find. Those are rare, and they're great. They define us. They define morality, and they allow us to extrapolate and talk about ideas that we may be struggling with or maybe we've never thought of before, and give each other various perspectives on the same thing. That is God's gift to mankind. Non-dogmatic, non-religious myths. Today, I'm going to break down for you in some pretty exacting detail how exactly we have lost our myths and broke the chains of the societal connections made by those myths. So the first thing I want to talk about is shared culture as the foundation of human connection. Why do stories matter? They shape identity. They teach values. They build empathy. And they unify generations. Now, how does all that work? How do they shape identity, Jesse? Well, every single time you read a story, you are putting yourself in the place of the protagonist, the main character. What is he doing? Is that what I would do? How many times have you watched a movie and you felt so much like you were in the place of the protagonist that you started shouting in your mind, or even shouting at the screen, things for the protagonist to do? Because that's what you would do if you were there. A good film, a good book, it gives you a vehicle. You get to take your soul and put it into the heart and mind of another being. Now, depending on how this being is shaped, will depend so much on your experience. Maybe the being is a lot like you, and that's why you read it. Maybe the being isn't very much like you at all, but that's why you read it. Most people reading Batman aren't like fucking Batman. They're reading Batman because they hope to be, they wish to be. And every scenario that they might have handled differently, they learn something from Batman. They learn something from the way he handled it. And that's why they read. And that's why they're interested. Superman, the ultimate good guy. When you were reading Superman and he's in some quagmire of a situation and you go, man, I would just rip that guy's head off. In a moment, you'll see why you shouldn't just rip that guy's head off. Because Superman doesn't do that. That's not how Superman solves his problems. Maybe that's how you would in a moment of fear and knowing that you have this power. But Superman, he doesn't have the same fear you have. He's not living the same experience where if he doesn't do away with a bad situation, it's going to come back and haunt him. He has the ability to be more relaxed. He has the ability to think for an eternity because there's a writer through the veil who's telling his stories to make sure that he's always the smartest man in the room, who comes up with the best, most perfect idea to save the day, to heal the world, to make things better. And the whole time we witness Superman go through that journey, it is shaping our identity. Superman, Batman, Luke Skywalker, all of these characters, they act as a mirror to us, teaching us what we would do, what we wouldn't do, what we would hope to do, who we might like to be. And the uniqueness of each of these mirrors, the specifics to what makes the Superman mirror, the Batman mirror, the Joker mirror, that is everything. The more poignantly pointed in its specific way, the more effective that mirror is. The more versions of the Joker, the more versions of the Batman dilutes what the Batman, what the Joker really is. Now, are there ways to add dilution to Batman and Joker and still have it be meaningful? Sure, of course. We've watched that over years and years. If you're a comic book fan and you ever read Secret Six and you saw Catman and he was kind of like a Batman, but he's a little bit different. Those little opportunities to do something that's kind of like Batman, but a little skewed in this way or that way, those let us learn very specific lessons when they're made like that. A great alternate version of Superman is the Superman Red Sun. Wow, what would happen to Superman if he was born in Russia? What would happen if the circumstances of his thing were much different? The best parts about a story like that are the aspects of the character that refuse to change because it's just who they are. It could be very, very powerful when you have a character like Superman, seeing him not through that American way lens, but seeing him through the lens of Russia, and ultimately having him be the same man, mean the same things, despite the fact that there's a lot of other challenges and a lot of differences going on within him. That is an interesting take on Superman and the Superman mythology that, through juxtaposition, shows you something else. However, that Russian Superman is fundamentally a different character. And why doesn't he get his own name? Why doesn't he get to be his own perfect character for this story? And if we don't have to acknowledge that he's Superman and that we're doing a juxtaposition of him being Superman, but now is Superman in Russia, well, now we can really lean into the ideas of, well, what if this Superman situation happened in Russia? How would that form the thing? How would this change? How would this matter? What would this teach us? Every value that a character on screen executes, you have an opportunity to go, yeah, or I don't know about that. Every bit of empathy that you see a character give, feel, or not give. How many times have you seen some sort of relationship falling apart and all that main character has to do is say 2 sentences, but they don't. And you're yelling at the screen, no, you got to tell him that you're sad because of the... Oh. Explain. Being able to go and watch Rocky, being able to share that with my son. It's the exact same movie. We'll both watch it. We'll interpret it a little differently. But ultimately, there will be parts that unify us. There will be moments that we both enjoyed the most. There will be a moment for him that's his most favorite, and there's a moment for me that's my most favorite. And my most favorite will say something about me, and his most favorite will say something about him. And through this movie, we get to communicate, and we get to interact, and we get to compare and contrast who we are by virtue of this third straw man who we got to embody when we watched the movie. This is so brilliant, so powerful, so important. Through these myths, we grow closer. We understand each other better. We laugh and enjoy. We relieve anxiety because we get to experience other people going through difficult situations and usually see them come out better in the end, see some positive resolution, see some positive faith about how this stuff could all resolve in a way that would be great for everyone. Nerd culture once functioned as a secular, global mythos, offering common ground across age, race, class, belief. I could talk Spider-Man with my dad and with my kids. And we all know that with great power comes great responsibility. Of course, when that part of the mythology, as it has been in recent years, is downplayed a little bit, like granted, we got that a little bit, thank God, in the Spider-Man 3. But in the Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1 that Disney had done, they skipped over Uncle Ben's death. They skipped over that with great power comes great responsibility part. And I hated that. I hated that that was not a central focus, that every child who came away from that movie didn't leave understanding what Spider-Man learned the hard way at the very beginning of his career. If you have the power to do something to help, you have a responsibility to do so. And if you do not honor your responsibility to do so, it may come back to haunt you. What a glorious lesson. What a glorious myth. No wonder Spider-Man is the most popular superhero in the world, because it's so easy to get right to the bottom of why he means something. And he basically means the same thing to everyone. I want to talk a little bit about shared culture in the past, which I think it's pretty easy to look back on now and say has been an era of collective mythic power. I mean, from the 1980s to the 2000s, we had a consistent stream of iconic, archetypal stories, the likes of which has not been seen in these past 20 years. And you're like, what do you mean? Star Wars is still around? Lord of the Rings is still around? Yeah, they're still around, but they weren't invented. This space wasn't made for them to come be and build and grow. The space is diminishing now, and it's regurgitation. But for a moment, there was Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Superman and Spider-Man and Batman and Star Trek and Pixar and Disney Renaissance. So some of these things were made over time. The Disney Renaissance started a little earlier than that, but it grew into a fandom. The DC comics and the Marvel comics, they started earlier than that, but it grew into a loyal fandom. As these fandoms were created, as people were reading the John Carter from Mars strips and reading Conan the Barbarian strips and all these different science fiction things like Superman and concepts were coming up, there was room in this world. There was demonstrative proof that there were a lot of people who were willing to come to worship these myths, these non-religious, non-dogmatic myths. And it's the reason something like Star Wars was greenlit, even though most people didn't think that it was going to fucking do anything. And what happened? Changed the whole world. Star Wars. Star Trek. A positive view of the future changes the whole world. A new renaissance of superhero films, honoring the source material in a satisfying way for the audience who has grown up reading these books, these stories that matter to it, these stories that it has waited to see brought to life on the big screen. For the first bunch of phases of Marvel, all these myths were brought to life in a way the fans could understand and agree upon, and wonderful, wonderful conversations and connections were made. To this day, my children and my ex-wife and we are a happy family when we are talking about Marvel Phase 1, 2, and 3 and some of the things that we've come to enjoy together. These myths that we enjoy together. And do we all see it exactly the same? No. but we experience basically the same thing, feel about it the way we do, and it helps us become closer to each other and understand each other better, the way we all are interpreting these myths. These weren't just franchises. They were the new mythology. You know, it's a silly example, I guess, but I couldn't help but think of Ben Stiller in A Night at the Museum. Ben Stiller, the audience assumes, is the perfect person to save this museum. As we said, he's an actor who's been cast, and literally somebody has read the script and going, all right, this is the character and they're the perfect person to save this museum. And then in casting Ben Stiller, they start going, who is the perfect person to represent this character? Who is the perfect person to save this museum, to bring this museum into balance? Why is it him? Why is he the perfect person? Well, it's because of his personal life. It's because of his home life. It's because of his relationship with his child. It's because the way his life's going right now. Okay, great. We assume that every little detail of his life and every little situation that he's in, that it's all going to lead to us having a deeper understanding about him and how problems may be solved and how things may be progressed in a better way. And ultimately, that's what you get. And, you know, I'm picking a movie that isn't necessarily the best movie. It's a bit of a kid's movie that I watched with my kids a few years ago. I've seen it a couple times. But I was just thinking, you know, every single time, here's this individual. Sorry, hiccups. Here's this individual who's representing this story. Why were they chosen? The assumption is because they were the best man for the job. It's most important that the hero must feel like the perfect soul for the journey, or we don't care. Half the time when you get people complaining, using terms like Mary Sue or something like that, you know, a lot of people called Ray a Mary Sue. You know, it's often way more about, is this the person who's the perfect vessel for the job? Is it obvious that they're the perfect person for the job? Is it obvious that they're the perfect vessel for the job? There were some interesting things about Finn. You know, Finn was a stormtrooper. He was like, you know, coming out of like this enslavement. That's some interesting things. You know, you can start to think, why would he be the perfect guy? Well, because he knows the bad guys and he can, you know, you can start to tell a story. There seems to be some thought process about why this person is the person. Now, Rey, over time, as you find out superficial details about her origins, you know, oh, she's Palpatine. And so it's like, that doesn't make her a character. A character isn't who you're born from. A character is how you respond because of where you're born from. A character is how you act every single time. Rey didn't have much character to speak of at all. She just kind of was quietly going through the motions of the story. And I can tell you this right now, the reason why that is because Rey was created by committee. Rey was chosen by Kathy Kennedy to be her self-insert, to make the Force female. But that's not a reason to include something in your narrative. The lead characters in your narrative are the most necessary, the most central, the perfect person for the telling of the story you are telling. And I know that that's not true for Rey because she didn't know, Kathy Kennedy, she didn't know what story they were telling when she fucking invented this character and brought this thing in. They didn't have part 2 laid out and part 3 laid out. This is why the whole series went tits up. This character hasn't been crafted from scratch to be the perfect protagonist for our narrative. They were just invented out of thin air. This is one of the reasons why the DEI has been such a problem. Because when things are invented like that, you need to then rely on your writers and your creative people who go to write the script to fucking figure out why and how Rey is the most crucial, important linchpin thing to this thing. And if they don't bother to do that, or they can't figure out how to do that, because what you've chosen isn't necessarily an organic, perfect choice to the story that's being told, the audience is not going to connect with these characters. And they say, oh, Jesse, that Star Wars wasn't for you. You're a 42-year-old man. Dude, I'm a 42-year-old man with 4 kids. 2 of them are girls. And I gave my kids the best possible open door to Star Wars that any child could ever get. When these movies came out, I brought them down to them. I tried to watch the different series with them. Disney, you have failed. And you have failed because the characters aren't important enough. The characters are not the linchpin. They're not real, true chosen ones. Even though Rey is a chosen one in the lamest sense, she's not a chosen one in the right way that services the story. Luke Skywalker was. His whole story was the centerpiece of that whole narrative, with the second movie ending with a personal revelation for him. Luke, I am your father. And that being a powerful enough place to end, because the story is about this perfect person for telling the story. He's the one in the quagmire of this back and forth between the Force being good and the Force being bad, or either way that it can go, right? The power of the chosen character it just cannot be compared to supporting characters who are then there to be in support of this perfect delineation of story that this main character represents. The other characters are there to supply the main character with motivation, distraction, learning, anything that the story needs to get done to help this character get from point A to point B. All side characters are based around the main chosen one character. And again, if this isn't like that, if this was unnaturally selected and a whole bunch of things just got clammed together, and then here's the actors that we have, well, then it's the writer's duty to go in and figure out how to make it that way, how to make that central character matter, and how to make all of the other things bend around it. Superman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, Hulk, they're not interchangeable. Their mythologies arise from them, in particular, being the perfect vessel for their stories. A multiverse, it causes a real dilution problem. The more variants you create, the more generic it becomes. When every story is a remix, none of them feel sacred. If anyone can be Spider-Man, no one really is. Asshole, fuckface. That's the equivalent of Spider-Man. Hey, asshole. Hey, fuckface. Hey, Spider-Man. This is the thing that you say to somebody when they're skinny and bouncing around and shooting webs. Oh, a Spider-Man. That is a dangerous place to bring us to. Spider-Man has deep, visceral meaning. Miles Morales has different meaning. Miles Morales Spider-Man makes you feel different, makes you think different things. Miles Morales is an excellent character. I like Miles Morales. But he is not the myth that Peter Parker is. He is not the monolith that Peter Parker is. Peter Parker and Spider-Man are intricately connected, and they represent the single most popular superhero on planet Earth. Why would we ever want to take that energy, that feeling, that encapsulated universal idea? I say Spider-Man, you know what I mean. And now we say Spider-Man, and you go, Gwen? Miles? Oh, Peter. Oh, I like the anime girl. She's my favorite Spider-Man. And now it becomes about superficial preference. Oh, I like Spider-Man when he's a robot. Oh, I like Spider-Man when he's a noir crime fighter with guns. I like Spider-Man when he's a cowboy. I like Spider-Man when he's a butch lesbian. Who gives a fuck what you personally like in variation forms? We all have personal preferences. Who gives a fuck? Go write something yourself and bring out your things that you're interested in, that you want to see in the world. Peter Parker was chosen because we had a very specific idea about this nerdy, kind of nebbish person who's going to give opportunity. He's going to be able to get superpowers, and he's going to be able to do things in his life. And what's the first thing this asshole wants to do? He's a nebbish guy, and he's just, he's going to go out there and he's going to be a wrestler. He's going to be famous. And then what happens? He learns that with great power comes great responsibility. He lets this freaking guy get away, and he kills Uncle Ben. And he could have stopped him. And he learns a terrible, devastating, powerful lesson that if you have the power to do something, you should. And Spider-Man's life sucks because of it. But he knows that if you have the power to do something, you should. And that your life could be even worse if you don't do anything. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. But I say Spider-Man now, and it's a little bit less clear. I say Star Wars now. And what does that even mean? What does Star Wars even mean? What does Rey and Finn and the whole Disney, whatever, what does it have to do with what people think of as Star Wars? What do all these shows have to do with what people think of as Star Wars? Fans of Star Wars just got some serious whiplash. People who are actually still watching Star Wars, they went in, they watched Star Wars Skeleton Crew, and it was built for kids. It was like an 80s Star Wars, and something that the whole family could watch. And then a few weeks later, ANDOR Season 2 comes out, and we get our first Star Wars attempted rape. And the words, "He tried to rape me," actually said out loud, which I know this might seem a little bit weird for some of you guys, but I'm telling you, as a writer, something in Star Wars, something that's a family brand like that. One, can you have an attempted rape at Star Wars? Definitely don't say, "He tried to rape me," later in the script, because that puts the thing out there for the younger eyes and ears to go, what is that? What does that mean? And now we're not enjoying a sci-fi adventure for the whole family. We're having a child in the audience have an existential crisis about what? There are people who would hurt me and love me but hurt me? Like, what? Why are our children thinking about that now? If you wanted to do that, ANDOR, exactly the way you did it, put a fucking warning. A mature audience warning at the front of that show. You haven't warned the audience that there's going to be attempted rape in Star Wars? You haven't opened up what Star Wars means to be an even better and more beautiful thing? You've made it a quagmire of consciousness. What is Star Wars? I don't know. I think most people agree it's the 6 films that they made ages ago, and it has nothing to do with the shit that they've been making now, ultimately. Because it's all just diluting the taste of the stew that was Star Wars a minute ago. Now, I've talked about this before in passing, but we'll get into it just a little bit deeper. But the multiverse as a concept is a myth killer. It was once used sparingly, Crisis on Infinite Earths. And that was to solidify the myth. You're like, oh, there's all these different things, but let's get it. Let's go. It's all one continuity that we can all understand. It all builds on each other. It's all connected. It's all one. And that works in so many ways because we are all one. The spiritual reality of the world you're living in is you are one with all things. So when we see a world that's interconnected and everybody's different, there's no same man on the Avengers. It's all unique people It feels authentic. We're in a world where we're all one, but we're surrounded by all these unique and authentic people, and we're all bringing out different aspects of each other's personalities. So we see that in the Justice League or the Avengers. We go, yeah, that feels real. That feels right. But when these things are homogenized, when the Captain America leading the Avengers isn't Steve Rogers, it's just a suit. The myth is dead. The multiverse is slowly undermining all of this beautiful myth creation because it flattens uniqueness. Everyone is everything. Everyone can be everything. Here's Spider-Man. Look into the room filled with the Spider-Man. If I tell an artist, hey, give me a cover filled with Spider-Man. I want Spider-Man in the front, and then I want 1,000 Spider-Man behind him, but from all different dimensions, all different Spider-Mans that you can think of. What's the difference if I say, do that with Batman? What's the difference if I say, do that with Superman? Do that with the Ninja Turtles? Do that with Buzz Lightyear, as we did famously in my Toy Story comics that we did years ago. We did variants. We're making fun of the toys being made into variants, and we had tons of Buzz Lightyear variants that, just were neither here nor there, and this didn't really make any sense, and generally just sort of diluted the whole concept of Buzz Lightyear mattering, because it was like, oh, well, you got the giant space cannon Buzz, you have the shiny armor Buzz, you have the gold seaman Buzz, not seaman, seaman Buzz. When every single character can be represented as an infinite number of completely different versions of itself. What have you done, man? You killed the myth. It just collapses. If 10 Superman exist, which one do I root for? Which one is the Superman? Which one is the moral compass of the DC universe? Not everybody is the moral compass. Not everybody is the Batman antihero. Not everybody is the aloof Martian. Not everybody is the warrior princess made of clay. Everybody is uniquely different. And their juxtaposition with each other and their significance in all ways that could be, it shouldn't be taken as like this insult that Superman's been given this significance and he's white. He's not white. He was created by a bunch of Jews. His name is literally Kal-El, which is fucking ancient Hebrew. And he's an alien. He's an alien. He just happens to look white to you. And that's fucking racist. Just so happens that's how they chose to draw him. But you really want to get into it? You're being racist. He's an alien. He represents the blacks. He represents every single marginalized community. It doesn't matter that he doesn't have a different skin tone that he might be judged for. He has superpowers that he's being fucking judged for all the time. And this is why it's so stupid what we try to make every minority into like this, this poor class of people who are being sapped away by all these. The white people on planet Earth have all the same problems. They just look a little different. What you're perceiving as racism is they saw you, they didn't like you, they didn't like your energy. They said something racist and you were like, it's because I'm black. It's not because you're black. You, them, you guys weren't meant to be. And you and me, the white version of the other, we're not meant to be either. And we would get into another fight. I wouldn't describe it as racism because I was white and that guy was white. You describe it as racism when they're a different color than you. But the moment you describe it as racism, you're actually missing the fucking point of all conflict and why things go badly in the first place. Our energies were different. We did not understand each other or see eye to eye. It can happen when you're different colors. It can happen when you're the same color. And it does all the time. Everybody. This like white privilege idea. Dude, If you got white privilege, you've just got more space to lean into depression and anxiety. And there's new experiences that you're going to have as a white privileged man. And I'm not going to fucking call you white privilege after we finish talking about how suicidal you've been, how much crazy anxiety and self-hatred you've been under. Is that not just as bad as racism? Somebody existentially fucking hating you for no reason? Hating yourself for arbitrary reasons. We need to stop comparing all of our pain. We need to allow for characters and stories to represent the tentpole of various pains. And we can't get in there and go, whoa, my dick looks smaller than yours because you represent this pain and I only represent this. Sorry, buddy. Tell another story and make your own character to represent that thing if you want to see that story represented in another way. Create something new and unique. Don't just keep swapping the mantles, stealing the names, stealing the power, stealing the thunder. All we do is erode the power of the original myth to do good and to unify us as a culture, as a society. And man, I hope you're beginning to see what a terrible, terrible tragedy that is when that happens. And to make a little legal point that these giant companies do not get. I mean, they're idiots. The whole concept of the multiverse, the holders of the intellectual property, they are making their brand indistinguishable from parody and knockoffs. You know how many Superman knockoffs there are? You know what happens the moment you start to wiggle in what Superman really is? It gets easier and easier and easier to steal your intellectual property and to create more and more things that ultimately will look at Superman in a bazillion different little ways. And Superman slowly but surely loses his power as now people can superficially choose their own Superman. They can go, no, I like the Nolan Superman from Invincible. I like that Superman who, is killing the whole planet. I like the Superman from Mark Millar's universe. I like a Superman when he's gay for Midnighter. I like Superman when he's black. Everybody is choosing not for the myth of Superman. The myth of Superman rocketed to planet Earth from a dying planet, powered by the sun to have all of these abilities. He's Superman, here to teach us how to be fucking better on planet Earth, raised by his farmer parents out in the Midwest to represent truth, justice, in the American way. That's Superman. But now, if you're superficially not as good as Superman, if Superman intimidates you on some level, you can point to a different Superman that you prefer. You can focus on a myth of your personal egoic choosing, instead of us all sharing in the one myth and comparing and contrasting that one myth to learn about each other. Now, these past 10 years in entertainment culture, I would say that it has been 100% destroying the lineage of these properties. There used to be a bridge between generations. I know it because I've walked across it many times as I've gotten a job, and the guy there who was 10 years older than me, he used to read comics, or he was a big movie buff. And before you knew it, he and I were great friends, understanding each other through the lenses of all the myths that we had absorbed, that we had both experienced, and then his interpretation, my interpretation, but we knew we were watching the same thing. And from that place, we learn about each other. Myths used to be passed down like heirlooms. Here you go, my Star Wars collection. My father passed his love of Star Trek onto me. And the original Star Trek was not necessarily a favorite of mine. It was I got in later when it was The Next Generation. I love The Next Generation. My father passed his love of comic books onto me. My father passed his love of comedy onto me. I've passed my love of games and video games and comic books and toys and so many things onto my son Grayson. My daughter Logan, she was open to some things. My son Cassidy, he's very different than me. He didn't necessarily like a lot of the same things that I liked. But still, we shared in some things. He's read some comics with me. He liked Venom. He liked monster movies, horror movies. So I got into those things so that I could share in those things with him. So that he and I could go see a horror movie and we could have that same interpretation where there is a bridge between our generations. Kids love Star Wars because their parents did. Not my kids. I tried to get my kids into it, but granted, this was all Disney Star Wars and they could not connect. But that connection for those parents who were able to turn their kids on to the same things that they loved builds deep bonds. Me and my dad, we have deep bonds over comedy, over superheroes, over Star Trek, and music. He shared his favorite music with me. Largely 70s bands. 70s bands are like my idols. My dad's an 80s rock star, so he didn't show me a lot of 80s bands. And I was a little kid in the 80s. So I grew up in high school, it was like 90s bands and stuff like that. That my dad was, he was always into like popular music or whatever, popular rock music. But my foundational music love comes from my dad's foundational music love. Alice Cooper and Creedence Clearwater and New York Dolls and all these people that mattered to him then mattered to me because he showed me that there was merit here and this was great. And we could go and we could listen to the same thing. We could take away different things from it. And we're bonded. We're closer. I could sing a song. I can mention a lyric. I could quote a movie. And he lights up. In fact, my dad probably put a little bit of it, almost too much emphasis on the idea of learning movie quotes. I thought that was going to be something that I was going to have to go out into the world and be prepared. I know all the movie quotes, and now I can interact with all the people. I know the movie quotes. Come on, let's movie quote together. And I'm usually making movie quote references all the time, and people never recognize them. But for me and my dad, to this day, whenever we get together, honestly, when I get together with him sometimes, because there's been moments of time where, we haven't, we're just dealing with personal things, whatever. It wasn't necessarily like as close as we really are at our heart, because we're very close. And I've said to him, I'm like, what do you do when I'm not around and you make all of these movie quotes and nobody recognizes them but me? If I wasn't here, that would have went over everybody's head. I'm like, you need me around, Dad. It's just the best thing when you're able to connect with your elders in such a simple way. I can remember my grandfather bringing us a movie. There's a movie called It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And he had the whole family watching because it was one of his favorite comedies from back in the days. I don't know if it was made in the 60s or whatever else. Lots of very famous comedians in it. And it was excellent. In that moment, I did feel like I knew my grandfather a little bit more. And just simply here, we're watching a movie, and every single time I laughed, I imagined, oh, well, I guess that's why I'm watching this, because he thought that was funny too. We both thought that was funny. I think that's funny too. Oh, ha, 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 this was funny. Did you like that movie? Yeah, I like that movie. You showed me the movie. You like that movie. You like that movie. I like that movie. We're bonded. Oh my God. You see how simple that is? And it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper when you get into real nerd culture and nerd mythology and the way all of these things are built to really tell particular stories and bring out certain aspects of goodness or can-do attitude or a desire to just find a way no matter what. There's so many important things that so many of these stories are about because, even though it's a guy with a suit or something like that, generally speaking, it's not about the guy in the suit. It's about the story that's being told through them. And hopefully they're the best possible vessel to tell this story. But it's getting ridiculous. Now parents and kids can't even talk about the same characters. They don't recognize them anymore. It's like, the Miles Morales Spider-Man. It's like I love the Miles Morales Spider-Man. At the same time, that's my Spider-Man, that's your Spider-Man. Okay. That seems like a innocuous thing, like, oh, I got a Spider-Man, you got a Spider-Man. They're a little different. We'll both learn about each other's Spider-Man. However, We could all share the same Spider-Man. We don't need a different Spider-Man. We could all share Miles Morales too. He doesn't have to be Spider-Man. He could be somebody else. His story will be just as good if he's not Spider-Man. Actually, it'll be better. It's really just like a horror and a tragedy that the spark of bonding across time is gone, or at least diminished to such a degree. Now, DEI has had a big hand in this destruction. And I guess I'm going to break down now, how organic myth was inorganically rewritten through DEI. And DEI, when you think about DEI, don't think about what the DEI, think about DEI as mandate. Mandate. A writer gets a mandate. Let me tell you, when you work in licensed comics, I've worked in licensed comics, I've worked for Pixar and the Muppets and plenty of licensed books. Oh my goodness. Every note that you get, shit. Wait, oh sorry, I thought I almost had to start re-recording because I had a phone call coming in. Okay, cool. My computer's still broken, and so I've been having to record on my phone, and I actually I was supposed to record on a microphone. I got like a whole new thing to use my phone and use my microphone, and I couldn't get it working today. So anyway, I'm recording on my phone, and I thought the phone call was going to make me lose my recording, so fortunately not. Anyway, we're back to DEI. So DEI is a mandate. It's a all-encompassing note, something simple and superficial. Can you change this person to a boy? Can you make that one a girl? Can you make that guy black? We don't want him to be a Christian. We don't want... Now, if your script, you've written it's a boy, it's a girl, it's black, it's Christian, it's whatever. A good writer has made those choices for sex, race, country, whatever it is. They have made them with deep thought. They have made this choice. And again, this is the assumption of the audience. And therefore, if you're a writer, it should be what you're doing. The audience believes that you have made these choices because they are crucial to the story you are trying to tell. When an arbitrary change gets added to you making choices based on what is crucial, it fundamentally rewrites things in all sorts of weird ways. There's a good example that I have. A long time ago now, they decided to make Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, gay. Now, this was a little strange because, first of all, Alan Scott's son, Obsidian, had already been outed as gay. And I say Alan Scott's son. He's got a son, he's got a daughter, he's got kids. He's also been married for years and years and years. His wife is a main character in his book, a Mary Jane, a Lois Lane, the supporting love interest. Now, Alan Scott has come out of the closet. Alan Scott's character is a Superman sort of good guy, a really morally righteous individual. But now, you just gave him a ton of baggage that doesn't even make any sense for the character. He's a closeted homosexual coming home every night to his wife, who he's lying to about who he really is. Wait a second. Just the mere fact that Alan Scott puts on a costume every day and goes out and puts his life on the line to defend the weak and the helpless, that suggests that he knows who he is and he's not afraid to be who he is. Maybe you say, oh, well, there could be a story where, you're still afraid to be who you are, even though you just want to be a masculine super. Okay. All you're doing is complicating the fact that this character has existed for decades and decades and decades, and this has never been acknowledged in any way. He is under severe moral stress his entire superhero career. Literally, it's like looking at Jake the Snake Roberts once you know some of the things that he's been going through. And all of a sudden, it's not Jake the Snake Roberts. It's this alcoholic, drug addict, self-hating, suicidal man who's just trying to make his dad proud. And it's sad. Alan Scott becomes a self-hating gay man who has been having affairs in secret and putting himself through some sort of terrible bit of secrecy out of shame for what people might say if he was his authentic self. Oh God, do you see what you did to that character by changing him in that way? He wasn't built to be that. And that change created all sorts of problems, created a completely new template that I don't think anybody is really interested in seeing. There's not a lot of successful, purely dramatic, make you feel yucky comic books. That's not really a thing. Let's go read some weird, dramatic, uncomfortable Alan Scott Green Lantern comic about how fucking yucky it was when he was having to be closeted in the fucking 60s and 70s and him banging a closeted president in one of the miniseries that they put out. Dude, these are the types of problems that occur when you shoehorn in this shit like this. DEI as a systemic tool, not a human goal. When inclusion becomes a checkbox-driven thing, myth becomes propaganda. And it does. When it's out, checkbox, we're not choosing because this is the chosen one. This is the best vessel. Even the best friend is a chosen one variant. The best friend of the main character is the chosen one to be his best friend. The perfect best friend for this character. The perfect choice for telling this story. And maybe it makes perfect sense that his best friend should be black, or his best friend should be Asian, or his best friend should be whatever the fuck is maybe DEI's picking. However, what tends to happen when these things are assigned and they're not felt, when that friend is felt, the writer searches their mind for a friend of theirs, or somebody they know, or somebody who speaks to them, or somebody who they feel would speak to this character. But the moment you say, and that character is going to be black, or that character is going to be Hispanic, you have to get around the monolith of that simple, superficial choice. And you have to get back to the feeling of what is right for this character to be, for it to interact with that character. And in mass, as you do this more and more and more again, checkbox-driven casting, checkbox-driven choices, it really is propaganda. A consistent narrative of a thing. The really, really savvy nerds and geeks in the culture, they noticed the checkbox system that we were under with DEI. They noticed it fast. And they started calling it out quickly. And everybody tried to call them racists. And then within a year or two, everybody else went, this is getting out of hand. But for those people who were paying attention, it was already out of hand. It was already inorganic, and it was already destroying the things that they loved. They were trying to tell you. And then very quickly, the rest of the audience got the same message. Oh, fuck. This isn't organic. This isn't natural. This is like fucking propaganda or some shit. They're like trying to affect my mind in this really just kind of over the top way. I get it. I get racism is a good thing. I get it. I get inclusion's a good thing. We got to give everybody freedom, give everybody rights, let people have the freedom to do whatever the fuck they want to do. Yeah, we can all get behind that. But they're like, but I'm not going to fucking play this game where I'm the Mr. Let me just make sure everybody's feeling great all the time. It's not my responsibility to go into the world and check everybody else's feelings. Yes, it's my responsibility to go into the world and not do harm. But I have feelings. These movies have been preaching at us when they're supposed to be helping guide us, helping us find ourselves, helping us know who we are, helping us to have discussions with our friends and our family so we can know who they are. And when instead it's projecting at us the things that it wants us to think, it's the death of art, it's the death of myth, and the death of the ability for those things to do anything positive to affect the collective consciousness. I mean, the reason why all of these modern myths have been taken over by the mainstream is because they wanted to use them to affect our minds. But they only are effective when they're organic, when they're true, when they are really the myths that can teach us. The DEI version of those myths, they don't hit us in the soul. They don't feel organic. And all of these ethnicities and gays of any variety on the LGBT spectrum, and I am one of them, who have been trying to use these things to get inside you and change the way you think. Oh my God. They literally broke the tool they were using. They're like, aha, this is a great tool. We're going to be able to, sorry, I broke it in half. I broke it. Now it doesn't work anymore. Now I can't use this for good. Writers like myself and so many, just some of my best buddy Aaron, like we talk about this stuff all the time. We have always been here in the entertainment business, and we have always been using our writing as a tool for more diversity, equity, inclusion, to bring more empathy to the masses. That's what a good writer does. And you got to do it in lots of clever ways. Because it matters, because things matter. It would matter to get that out there. It would matter to get this out there. But when the blanket choice of what matters and what's going to matter every single time, as opposed to what matters specifically with this story, what's the organic piece for this story that's going to make it sing? Everything is unique. Every story is unique. Everything is based around complementing the kernel of truth and justice and awesome that is in a thing. You have a good song, you have a good melody. Somewhere in the center of this thing is the thing that we like. And everything around it, if it doesn't complement the thing we like, it's not going to work. We're not going to love it. It's not going to be art. One of the greatest artistic lessons I ever learned many years ago, the teacher who had gone to Cooper Union, and she had a student teacher come in. He was great, and he was teaching us a lesson one day about he said, imagine a big canvas. And he was like, and imagine like I get in here, and I draw this like really perfect face and this perfect eye, but like I don't finish the hair, and then I come over here and I kind of draw like a dinosaur leg, and then I go over here and I draw something else, and that didn't really come out exactly good, and like some of it's really detailed and some of it's kind of cartoony, and like you look at it and it just looks like a mess. He said, however, if I started from the very bottom corner of this page and I just made a little family of stick figures, and here's their house, and here's their simple little car, and then here's the rest of their neighborhood, and then here's a couple other people playing, and they're throwing a ball around. And if I just consistently drew the simplest images of these stick figures and their little square houses and mailboxes, just this little simple thing, and I covered up this entire canvas in just this consistent, simple stick figure world, I will have made art. That's how it goes. Art is consistent and complementary. A consistency to the narrative. Continuity. Continuity amongst a single image. And comic books, and novels too, and films, it's constant continuity. The continuity of what's going on is what keeps you in it. It's what makes it real. When you don't have continuity, or you have a embedded structure within what's supposed to be organic continuity that seemed completely inorganic, and It's there all the time, and it's unflapping, and it's never handled differently. It's just is what it is, always one thing. You're unfortunately just destroying your ability to utilize these myths in any meaningful way. Because of this whole DEI thing, new characters are usually not allowed to earn their place. They're inserted over old ones, which fractures the myth. They'll give them the mantle, or, like we just had with Captain America, Sam Wilson. Now he's Captain America. I would have liked it better if he was American Eagle. American Eagle, but he was like in that Captain America role or whatever else, but his name was American Eagle and he could fly, and maybe he had the shield and all this stuff. That'd be great. I think that's more respectful to Sam, personally. Especially because Sam's character is that he loves Steve. He's Steve's friend. He respects Steve. Steve's a man from the 40s, but he likes him. He appreciates him. He appreciates what he's about. A friend of Steve's would want to honor him, not by just becoming him and taking his costume, but by embodying what he represented. That's cool. That's important. A lot of times when there's these new girl boss characters that they put in, they do such a disservice to these women, to these gay characters, to these minorities. I had a friend of mine who wrote a script. It was all about these girls. It was a girl rock band. I don't know if it was in the 80s. I think it was. And basically it's just this total rah-rah girl power kind of thing, doing a battle of the bands, becoming rock stars, all this stuff. And when you read this script, I totally understood what she was going for, kind of thing. She was hoping, to just, make people excited and feel like a lot of experiences are yeah, awesome, this is great. Dream come true, dream come true, dream come true. And I told her, I said, listen, if you don't make these characters work harder and have to suffer more and deal with more difficult situations in order to get what they want, your audience will riot when you give it to them. When you give them a happy ever after, your audience will go, fuck this movie. However, if you make these girls truly have to work for what they are going to get here, if you give them real reasons to want it, real setbacks in getting it, and real wisdom earned and situations to overcome, then if you do not give your audience a happy ending, they will riot. If you make your characters work hard enough to get it, your audience will demand that you give it to them. But if you don't make them work for it, no audience is going to want to see them succeed. We are all working too fucking hard here on Earth for the things that we want, to watch somebody just walk in and be handed something arbitrarily. If it's something they want, they better fucking earn it. If they do, we will cheer forever. If they don't, we will boo. It's in the hands of the writers, of the creative people, to keep us rooting for these characters. And if this is true, what a disservice it is to do anything less than that to your female characters. Females are often treated with this respect that we don't want to beat them up too bad. We don't want to hurt them too bad. Dude, equality's a bitch. Hurt them like the fucking men. If you put them through the paces that the men have been put through, we will care. We care about McClane and Die Hard because he's fucking barefoot and stepping on glass and freaking on his weekend off trying to see his girlfriend, and instead he's shaving all these people that he doesn't have to save. And if not for him being there in that very specific moment, at that very specific time, and being this specifically stubborn asshole capable of freaking driving these European terrorists crazy, there's no movie. There's no thing for us to watch. He's the perfect vessel, and he's going to earn it so much so that by the time that movie ends, it doesn't care. We don't care how things resolve. Just that John McClane gets what he wants. And that's also why his kind of not quite getting the ending he wants also is kind of thing, because he kind of succeeds. He doesn't see. It makes us want to stay with him more. He hasn't won yet. He hasn't gotten what he wants yet. He can't seem to get out of his own way. That has created a whole fucking series of Die Hard films. Now, when you do this, you just like hand over these mantles and things like that. You're stripping characters of the very struggles and archetypal patterns that made them relatable and timeless. That's the big one. You know, when there is a myth that has become written in time, like with great power comes great responsibility, dude, cover that up with a different sign at your own risk. Like, seriously, what? Like, you're so lucky as something has really stuck, and now you're going to go make it a shade of gray, like a little bit less powerful? No. The more powerful you can make the things like that about your myths, the more likely it is that those myths will stand the test of time and will propagate for forever. And I gotta say, audiences, they sense this and they reject it straight out of hand. Like that is a lot of what's going on now. The audience has caught up enough to what's going on that now they are just Furiosa? What? Mad Max? We're gonna put a girl in it? Fuck, rejected. Furiosa was great, but the audience didn't even bother to go see it. There's a shitload of movies that have been coming out lately that have been like, okay, or whatever, but the audience didn't even bother. You know, Skeleton Crew was apparently pretty good. Andor's great. I really like Andor. Nobody's watching it. And yet they're still spending so much money on this shit. But the audience is rejecting it straight out of hand. Not out of hate, but out of grief for the myths that are being violated. They love these myths. This hurts them. They don't want to go and support something that hurts the myth. It hurts all of us to see these myths hurt, to see these things dishonored. Now, because of what they've been doing this whole time, the audience that they had, especially the elder statesman audience, they've left the fucking building. And the new one isn't coming. The new one, I know you may find this hard to believe, they were there to connect with us. They were there to connect with their fathers. They were there to connect with their teammates and their brothers and their teachers. You've come up in the world. How many of your teachers were fucking superhero fans? Or anime fans? Or fans of some band they turned you on? How many wonderful teachers are geeks and nerds? How many members of your family are geeks and nerds? How many people all around us have been telling us how great Spider-Man is? You gotta check out Spawn, you gotta check out this. Oh, check out that series. Everybody in their life has a nerd. Everybody in their life has a nerd that means something to them, that they turn to for advice. There is some high-thinking, high-minded, liking to read, liking to philosophize, caring about really great stuff, somebody who loves to celebrate craftsmen, somebody like me. It's probably you. You are important. You make the whole fucking world go round. And when we are not there to say, oh yeah, this looks great. Can't wait to see that new Marvel movie. So excited for this new Star Wars project. Did you see the latest episode of Doctor Who? Holy shit, last night on Star Trek. When we are gone, their whole fucking entertainment system collapses. We're the ones who care, and the other people were showing up to bond with us. They were showing up because everybody appreciates shared culture. Everybody loves having shared culture. It makes it so fucking easy to understand each other when you have shared culture. The whole Marvel universe, the phenomenon of the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, it's because we crave a shared culture. We crave a place to begin to talk to each other from. Common ground. We all want common ground. It's such a fucking tragedy that the most common ground beneath us is eroding. As all of these things have been changed in important ways that matter to the fans, those original fans abandoned the myths. Not because they think they're abandoning the myths, but because they feel alienated. They feel that the myths have abandoned them and they don't have any control over them. And like I said, the new fans, they're not sticking around because what they were really after was that shared connection. Oh yeah, I heard that's good. Oh yeah, I heard that's good. Oh yeah. This is how things become hits in the first place. How John Wick becomes a fucking, empire for Keanu Reeves. Because a bunch of people saw the movie and went, I loved it. It was so good. And they go out and they fucking tell people. They share it with people. And the shared connection is what brings people into the theater. I heard this was good. I want to share this connection. I want to share this joy with the other people who told me it was good. But when you lose the baseline fans, when you lose the original believers of the myth, there's no new fans. There's no one to share a connection with. There's no longer a common language. And when culture loses that, society frays. These IPs, characters, franchises, stories, whatever you want to call them, these myths, they've gone from individual symbols to meaningless masses. Spider-Man, Batman, generic version of X, generic version of Y. How many James Bond type movies are there? And doesn't each one of those James Bond type movies kind of dilute the original James Bond? And in some of them, they'll reinvent the James Bond thing in a whole new way. Kingsman was a lot of fun. I really like the Kingsman movies. And some of them can take over the thing. And usually it's because they're hitting on something that's real and something that's real in the moment. And as that thing can be expanded upon and more people can get behind that, that can become a shared experience. But when there's already a shared experience of this same fucking thing in existence, how about we just stop fucking up James Bond and tell some good stories? When I was younger, every hero used to be the embodiment, the embodiment of a specific archetype. Now there are endless knockoffs of every idea. Wolverine is no longer the best there is at what he does. He's one of a fucking dozen. After the 90s, and you got Lobo and Ripclaw and Warblade and every other gritty character designed to cash in on the id that Wolverine represented. And all of these things inform Wolverine and kind of dilute Wolverine. And all of the changes. Now there's Girl Wolverine. There's Wolverine X-23. Wolverine X-23, her story is nothing like Wolverine. So when I say Wolverine, and we mean her, literally the energy underneath what I'm saying, in the shorthand, in the shared culture, you are undermining the power of Wolverine. I know what that means. And I know, Jesse, how much is it really? And how many people really? Dude, I'm telling you, the shared myths done similarly bring us together. And they don't cause confusion. When they're unshared and they're changing and it's adjusted in this way or that way, people are tuning out. That's not the thing I remember. That's not how I remember it. And when those people tune out and there's no longer a fan base of people who already care about it and have already said, it's been proven to me, this is great and you should like it too. Now there's nobody doing that. Why'd you spend billions of dollars on that intellectual property in the first place? You pissed off the fans so much that they're not shouting about how great it is. Of course you're not going to get any new fans. The horrible truth is really that myth without meaning is merchandising, not storytelling. And when we were focused on the storytelling, I could tell you this: the merchandising had never been better. But when you go about it like merchandising, and they do, the storytelling is never served worse. And the moment the storytelling is not the centerpiece, the moment the characters and the myth is not the centerpiece, there's no fucking merchandising. There's no audience. There's no old audience, and there's no new audience who wants to share a connection with them. I've always felt that nerd culture was a bridge to peace and understanding. And unfortunately, these past 10 years has literally been the death of nerd culture's ability to be a bridge to peace. And I'm not giving up. I still believe that those of us who care, those of us who are looking for these things, we will find new things. We'll find new things to love. We'll find new things to think about. We'll be able to transform ourselves into new types of people who are fans of other things or create some of these things for ourselves. But right now, the one that you and me, when we were little kids, if you think it like me at all, where we looked up and we saw these things and we saw a moral representation of how great the world could be, of people standing up for the little guy, of people making sure that nothing fell between the cracks, that we were living in the highest state that we possibly could live in. You know, that feeling of hope and optimism from the myths that had been created by people like Gene Roddenberry, creating a positive vision of the Earth's future where we are out exploring the galaxy and so high-minded that we won't even interfere in developing consciousnesses because we don't want to fuck them up. We want to let them develop. We're so freaking cool. We want to allow free will to be. Wow. So much hope, so much optimism, so much to look forward to in a world with all that shit. But then watch them destroy that shit for a decade. And you go, where? Nerd culture was a safe space to debate. Differences of opinion didn't divide us. They bonded us. And unlike religion or politics, shared stories were universal, inclusive, thoughtful, fun. We lost a model of peaceful disagreement. And dude, that is such a massive cultural loss. We have to figure out a way to bring it back. And some people are already, through anime and through independent pursuits. And we will. We will bring it back. All right. Close up this show. We'll talk about just the entertainment apocalypse, as it were. Our greatest modern myths have been vandalized by short-sighted thinking, algorithm-driven writing, and checkbox quotas. The result A generation without shared icons, without shared story. And fuck, is that depressing? And with it, we lose shared empathy, shared imagination, the ability to see ourselves and others. You know, we sell less action figures than ever, and that worries me. Because the thing that I've always understood about action figures and me being drawn to them and seeing other people be drawn to them is that action figures teach empathy. Here's one guy, here's another guy. This guy does this guy thinks, I'm gonna do this. So that guy does this. So this guy does this. So this guy does this. The back and forth, the cause and effect, that teaches you empathy. Similarly, in a film, in a TV show, it's a little bit easier to get that empathy going when you got one toy in one hand and another toy in another hand, and you think, what does this hand do? What does that hand do? And this guy punches him in the face, and the other guy goes, he didn't like that, and he punches him back, and then you have a very simple idea about empathetic reactions. When he did this, I felt this way. When he did that, I felt that way. Boom, boom, boom. This is how we fucking learn. My friends, if we can reclaim storytelling, we can still rebuild this bridge. If you're out there and you're a writer, or you're an aspiring one, or you're somebody who's just fed up with all this shittiness, get in there, man. Get in there. We need you. Write some great stories. Come up with some great ideas. It's never been fucking easier. I think I did my last week's show on Kickstarter and fundraising. There's so many opportunities. Get yourself out there. Get yourself the opportunities that you need to fucking change this world for the better. And you know what else you can do? Buy new comic books, watch new movies, watch new TV shows, recommend them, share them, scream to high heaven. What is good? I got a publishing company, Blacklight District Studios. We made Fucking for Our Future. We made King of Kings. I really believe our stuff is good and worth your time. If you go and read it and you believe that too, dude, be my man. Go tell everybody, please. Wake everybody up. Check this out. Check that out. I know they fucked up Star Wars and they fucked up Star Trek and they fucked up Marvel and they fucked up DC, but we've got something good here. We've got something good here. I just read Mark Millar's Big Game miniseries, which is his whole universe, The Kingsman, Kick-Ass, Superior, all these different things. I've only maybe read a fraction, maybe like a third of all the things that he's put out independently. But I did read the miniseries Crossover, where he crossed over all the stuff, all of his different properties. It was great, man. I really liked it, really enjoyed it. It made me interested in reading some of the other books too. And, I haven't had a chance to do that because I literally just finished Big Game today. But there you go. Something new. Right now, Jeff Johns has a whole freaking comic book universe with Gary Frank and a whole bunch of these other great artists. And it's excellent. Jason Fabok's one of the artists in his thing. His stuff's great. The Ghost Machine, that's what it's called. Support the Ghost Machine. Support people like Ripa. Support independent filmmakers. My family is starting a film company. Defiant Productions. My whole family's moving into North Carolina. We've got like a big family complex down there. We're going to make movies. We want to make movies. My family, we love horror. We love sci-fi. We love high-minded shit. We love movies. And we are coming together to make them. My dad writes them. I write them. We're all writers and producers in the family, of the Snider family. We're going to be making some cool stuff. I fucking promise you. Support us. Support what we're doing. There are independent creators who have been out there doing cool things that you might love for forever. People like Adam Green, who's got his Aeroscope pictures with the Hatchet, happen to be friends with Adam. And, maybe Adam Green's stuff isn't your cup of tea. But he's an independent person who is for a lot of people. There's a lot of people who fucking love Adam. And you could be an Adam. You don't have to be the fucking Stanley Kubrick of everything. You could be somebody with a great niche that people appreciate and people love you for. And you could create something and honor that something and know that that thing is protected and under control and never going to be needled and picked at and ruined by stupid, superficial thinking. You could know that the movies you make, the books you write, will always be something that the culture can share. Something that generations of kids can come together and enjoy together. Something that people can use to understand each other better, understand each other's motivations. Something that can be used to bring people together. Shared culture harmonizes humanity. We need as much of this shared culture as we can possibly get. Imagine if we were all relatively in the same boat about Jesus, let's say. We were all, because I'm very not dogmatic. I like Jesus and stuff, but all the things we're doing, you must be saved by Jesus, you must this, you must that. I don't say must to anything. I don't believe in must. I really believe that that's counterintuitive to attracting people to you. And I think that the good things that Jesus had to say and whatnot can be lost sometimes when dogma is led first, instead of teaching somebody the positive things that they are to learn from Christ. But let's say we were all there. We were all having these very similar things because we were all reading the same book. You don't think that would bring our culture together? You don't think that, let's say, the Muslim religion, the Jewish religion, well, all those religions were gone and we were all just focused on one, we were all talking about the same thing? You don't think that would bring us together? Of course it would. And that's what these myths do. Because there's supposed to be one fucking Batman. And if we all study and love Batman and learn the different lessons that we can learn from Batman or learn from Superman, we're all going to grow together in similar ways on a similar path. We're not going to lose track of one another. We're not going to seem so alien to one another when we know that we're all enjoying and experiencing similar things and getting similar things out of these experiences that we enjoy. Anyway, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I hope you're listening to my new Monday show, Everything They Don't Want You to Know. It's on esoteric wisdom. Last week's episode was on homework, a very passionate episode dedicated to my daughter as I've been trying to fight homework for my AP student. She's fucking stressed out of her mind, and homework is a fucking slavery that needs to be abolished. And you can check out that episode. You can check out lots of other episodes. I used to do my music show on Mondays, All Your Favorite Bands Suck. It's still available everywhere except for Spotify, and I will be bringing it back soon within the next few months. There's 55 episodes, recommendations of my favorite bands. If you want to go to iTunes or whatever else, and you can get tons of great recommendations. The Offspring and Rage Against the Machine, rap artists, punk artists, ska artists, humor, tons of great music. Go check it out. And then, every Monday, Everything They Want You to Know. That's what I'm doing right now. And of course, this show is every Wednesday, and every Saturday I do a coolest pick or a coolest classic. I hope you've been enjoying all the fighting movies and fighting TV shows that I've been covering for a little while now. If you're into fighting movies and any good kung fu and shit, check out the past bunch of episodes that we've been putting out. They're really great. Anyway, I hope you will join us on Saturday, and again this coming Wednesday for another fucking awesome episode of the Coolest Geek Alive. Love you guys. Give your stare.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.
It's my favorite part! Isn't that heavy? I'll play that! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Coolest alive! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Stay with your tribe! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Revenge of the Geeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Week after weeks! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Laughing with you! It's gonna be fucking awesome! And crying sometimes too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Spelling it out! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Making you shout! I'm a genius! I got lyrics coming out me bum for days! You like that? It's a kazoo solo! I played that too! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Talking some shit! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Living the shit! My voice is fucking awesome! Food in our mouth! coming soon. Straight to the top of the pops for this one. Passing the moon. It's gonna be fucking awesome. On with the show. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Ready, set, go. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Fucking awesome. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Just wait. You'll see. You'll all see.
You'll all see.
The podcast playground.